Coming to you live from Rublin Studio in Brooklyn, New York. The hot new internet talk show, Know Yourself, where we inform you, inspire you, and encourage you to know yourself. And here to help you do just that, your host, Mr. Brian McCoy.
Welcome to another edition of the hot new online show, Know Yourself. I'm your host, Brian McCoy. Today we have three top-of-the-line guests. Our first guest is the editor-in-chief of the hot new online gospel magazine group, Mr. Robert Hassan James himself. We'll be right back with our first guest. Welcome back, everyone. Our first guest is the CEO, chief, and editor of the hot new online gospel magazine group, Mr. Robert Hassan James himself. How are you, man?
What's up, man?
What's going on, man?
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you for being on my show. Listen, let me ask you something. How did the name group come about? Where did that originate from?
Well, when I first started the magazine, I was, kind of playing with different names. I didn't want it to be like, similar to anything else. And when I thought of gospel music, I actually thought of, gospel music being the root of every music that's out here. And, some people may say, well, gospel music didn't really start until Thomas Dorsey came around in the 1930s. But when it goes deeper than that for me. It goes, and when our ancestors were in slavery and singing those songs and those hymns. So to me, that was like the root of all music. It started way back, hundreds of years ago. So that's where the name came from.
Well, it's interesting that you took it so far back. You gave us a more in-depth meaning to what the root really means.
Exactly.
That's really interesting. Now, when did you come to realize, better yet, how did knowing yourself help you come to realize that this is what you wanted to do? Because now there are other gospel magazines out there, but what makes yours different, and how did knowing yourself help you come to realize this is what you wanted to do?
I think that's a good question, because that's an important statement about knowing yourself. And I think, oftentimes growing up, your parents or people can tell you, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And, some people have a plan, like, oh, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer.
Right.
I mean, for me, it wasn't really like that. It was like, kind of went to school, not really knowing what I wanted to do. I kind of knew I wanted to do entertainment because, I grew up, just loving music and, things of that nature. But it wasn't until I was working in advertising and I saw, different magazines. Like, I was a lover of like reading magazines and reading books and things of that nature. So I was very intrigued by, publishing and stuff like that. So although there were gospel magazines, there wasn't anything that spoke to me as somebody who was like hip, but yet still loved choirs and stuff like that. So I thought, I was like, wow, maybe I could I started, jotting stuff down. And then before I knew it, it was like in a magazine form. And then I would have ideas, I would write it down. And, after a while, I was just like, wow, maybe I can, start a magazine. Something not like a gospel today, but something a little more edgier than that. So that's when I came up with Root Magazine. And,
At what point did you decide that you could make this really come to pass?
It was like in 2005, I really sat down and, God was giving me a lot of direction as far as what I wanted to do with my life. I was happy with my job, but I was like, it has to be something bigger. So because this was a vision that God had given me, I really started being serious about it. And, oftentimes a lot of people, they say they want to do something, but don't really put any action behind it. So, I started putting my money where my mouth was. So, I opened up a business account. Then I got my name registered, and I really just started doing different things to make it a reality.
Right.
And I actually got people behind me who knew graphics. So I got a prototype done. But then something happened, and when you deal with people with business, especially people who you really don't know,
right,
things started falling apart. So it kind of fell apart after about 6 months, and then I got discouraged. And although it was still in the back of my mind, like, I'm going to do this, and the word was already out there. So people was like, hey, what's going on with the magazine? I think even you kept coming to me like, yo, what's going on? What's going on? And I kind of needed that to kind of get keep me motivated. So about a year and a half ago is when I came back full-fledged, and I did my first online portion of the magazine last year. So we're actually about a year old now. We're on to our 5th issue.
Wow.
So far we've done cover stories on Donna Lawrence, Kim Burrell, and then I did the 50 greatest gospel artists of all time, which is my first print edition that we premiered at the Stellar Awards, and Marvin Sapp, and then my current issue that'll be out in a few weeks is with Kirk Franklin. It's another print edition. So
now, speaking of your print edition, I noticed that you did this 50 greatest artists print edition. Now, I've seen like magazines like Vibe, different magazine that does like 50 greatest, you know.
Yeah.
What made you decide to do something like this?
That's funny that you mentioned that. That's actually where a lot of my inspiration came from, you know, those type of magazines, because I think, you know, in gospel music we kind of, a lot of stuff looks kind of corny, or, you know, I think when we do stuff we should do it at more in an excellent manner than the world does it. So a lot of things I kind of take from magazines like Essence, you know, that have that good, nice look about them, and even stuff like this. This is, I think, it's a conversation piece.
Yes, definitely.
So although, you know, some people may say you don't want to cause any, you know, controversy or competition in gospel, I thought it would be a good segue to do something like that. So a lot of my inspiration came from that, and you know, I thought it was, I got a team of people who knew gospel music, and we came and we got a list together, and it grew to like maybe over 100 people, and then we had to narrow it down. Right. It was kind of amazing the way it was done. Bishop Kenneth Moores, I actually had a conversation with him about the 50 greatest, and he actually loved the magazine, but he felt that a few people were omitted. And, you know, I wasn't arguing with him because he came up in the ranks. Yeah, and not only that, he really knows gospel music. Right. So it's just a testament to the fact of, you know, there are so many different pioneers in gospel music that, you know, me being young and even my team probably didn't know about. So I think we're going to do another issue where we kind of honor those pioneers of gospel music. But I still think it was a perfect segue anyway, just for, you know, conversation piece.
Definitely, definitely. And Bishop, you know, being that he's been around for so long, he would know some of those who might have been omitted from the magazine, who you could honor later on in your next issue.
Exactly.
Now, is this magazine only catered to church folks?
No. As a matter of fact, we're actually in the midst of doing something in our October issue. We're going to start covering gospel music and Christian contemporary music, and just interviewing other people as well. Like I had a talk with someone from my team, and he's actually well versed in the industry, and he said he would try to get me an interview with Mary J. Blige. And I'm open to stuff like that, because just because people aren't, you know, in your face, you know, singing gospel music, everyone has a story. Exactly. So my thing is, as long as it's clean and you have something to say, because most of these people came up in the church anyway. Exactly. So I mean, I'm all for all of that. So it's going to be, although it's going to be Christian based, we still want to touch all areas.
Gotcha. So now, give me one of your main goals, or main objectives that you want for this magazine.
I want it to be, although it's an online magazine, and a lot of people may say, you know, print is dying, my dream has always been to see my magazine on the newsstand. And it's kind of funny, because if you look at any newsstand, you don't see any gospel magazines.
That's true.
Wherever you go. So I want to be the first gospel music-oriented magazine on the newsstands. That's my main goal.
So where can the people purchase this magazine online? What's your website?
My website is rootmagazineonline.com, and we have all of our past issues up there, as well as we'll have current issues as well.
Let's support this brother. Go online, rootmagazineonline.com. Purchase his magazine. It's a collector's item. This one particularly is the 50 greatest gospel acts of all time. It's great reading material. We'll be right back with our next guest.